So I had pressed under my collar band, taken all the pins out, trimmed it to 1/4 inch, and now that pressed under seam is repinned in place, making sure that my folded edge barely covers my seam allowance. And if you'll notice how close my pins are together, you're going to want to have several pins in here, because just like the cuff, we are going to edge stitch this from the outside, hoping to completely catch that edge and close the hole on the inside. And if you don't have your pins close enough together, you run the risk of missing your fabric and winding up with places that you either have to restitch again or come back with a hand needle and stitch closed. If you're nervous about that, you certainly can slip stitch this open and closed if you choose to. Take a needle and thread and just do a slip stitch and close this with a needle and thread quickly. Then you will edge stitch from the right side, and you don't have to worry about catching that edge because you've already caught it with a slip stitch. But you can do it without slip stitching as long as you will pin carefully and then sew carefully. But if you want to slip stitch it, you certainly can. Once it's pinned into place, we are now ready to edge stitch the collar band. And even if you top stitched your collar, the collar band is completely edge stitched all the way around. It is edge stitched no matter what you have done to your collar band or to your cuffs or to your button band up the front. So we're going to go to the machine and edge stitch. When you edge stitch your collar band, you are going to start fairly near center back. It doesn't have to be exact, but get fairly close to the center back. Kind of find your two seams, get in the center of it, and you start at the top of your collar band, or where the collar band has been attached to the collar. And we'll start at that point. And we're going to stitch completely all the way around this collar band. Your top edge is completely enclosed already. If it helps you when you're edge stitching, you're welcome to use a number 5 foot or number 10 foot to stitch around this. Remember, edge stitching by definition is 1/8 of an inch or less from the edge. And you sew it from the right side. You sew it from the face of the garment because it does show on the face of the garment. You noticed when I started I did not backstitch. Because we are on the face of the garment, we will not be backstitching. When you get to your curve, to place your fingers out to the side kind of as a pivot point, you can edge stitch around that curve, keeping your stitching parallel to the edge. Pivot turn at the bottom corner. This corner is completely enclosed as well, because we burrito seamed that so it'd turn out like the David Coffin method. And now as you sew, your shirt is going to be pushed through the sewing machine here in this armband as you come around this bottom side. You'll reach up underneath and take those pins out just before you get to them. And I will quite often stick my fingertip on a pin so that I know that next pin is just at the toe of the presser foot, and go ahead and pull that out. And then I come down and find my next pin, and I know the next pin is at the toe of the presser foot, and I can reach up underneath and take that out. Remember, those pins are placed, I placed my pins fairly close together so that the back side of this would be caught as we sew. That I would catch that collar band facing. Not sure why we have that thread that's cut there, but we are going to be sure you go slow enough that you're able to stay straight. Use your fingers, feel, and make sure that there's not a tuck. You don't have fabric tucked up underneath there. Again, I've got my finger where the next pin is, so I know when to reach up and take the pin out. And every time I reach up in there, I make sure that you've noticed that I'm making sure I pulled that shirt back out of the way again so I don't catch my shirt as I'm coming around here. As you get towards the front, sometimes it's easier just to go ahead and pull the shirt so the majority of it's now behind your machine. Keep just enough there. Notice as I'm sewing, I also will quite often hold my hands, which allows me to pull on my seam allowance just a little bit and keep that defined so I don't wind up with a little bubble along my seam allowance as I'm edge stitching it into place. And I continue to the front of the garment here. Pivot turn. And head up around that curve. And then along the collar band, back till you reach your stitching. So as you head around the top of the collar again, you're just going to continue to sew until you come back to where you began. And when you get back to where you began, you'll just stitch over the top of those stitches for about 3 or 4 stitches. That way your first stitching does not need a knot. These 3 or 4 stitches will embed it. And then you'll tie a knot in the end of that when you're through. Then you'll flip it over, look at it. Ideally, all along this edge here, it should be caught, and it should be fairly close to looking like an edge stitching and not have any tucks in it, which is what we've got, and that is good. So that the collar band facing is completely enclosed. If we look at the outside, our edge stitching is an even width all the way around without wobbles. Our collar folds down and rolls, and then your collar band will lay smooth as long as it's got a curve to it. If you pull it out straight, it's going to tend to be a little bit ripply, which is what we want. We want it to want to stay curved. And when you have that, your collar band is done and you are complete. The only thing you have to do is pull your thread through and tie your knot on the back there, and then you are done. Okay.